Hey everybody, Rob here at etrailer.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the CURT Class 1 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2018 INFINITI Q50. Now here's what it's going to look like once we have it installed. The cross tube is going to be hidden behind the bumper, which is really nice because nobody wants something really big hanging out on the back of their INFINITI. Now it is a Class 1 hitch, so it's going to give us that 1¼ by 1¼ receiver tube opening, which would be great for bike racks or some of those smaller cargo carriers. But regardless of what we're going to be using it for, we're going to mount all of our accessories to the hitch pin hole here on the side. The hitch is going to accept a standard 1/2" pin and clip. Now these are not included with the hitch, but you can pick them up here at etrailer.com, along with some locking devices to make sure everything's nice and secure, and anti-rattle devices to take away that annoying rattling sound when we're driving down the road. Now if you're looking for a hitch for your INFINITI, you already have something in mind you want to do, but you need to make sure that the hitch is going to be up to the task that you put it to. So as far as the weight rating goes, our hitch is going to have a 200-pound tongue weight. That's the maximum downward pressure at the end of the receiver tube. Now with that, we'll be able to carry 2, maybe 3 bikes with us on a bike rack, or be able to put a small cargo carrier in there and free up some space on the inside of our INFINITI. Now the hitch is also going to have a 2,000-pound gross trailer weight rating. That's how much the hitch can pull, but that does include the trailer and everything loaded on it. Now with those numbers in mind, I do always suggest you check your INFINITI's owner's manual, because those are the ratings for the hitch, but we don't want to exceed the manufacturer's rating for our car. I'd like to give you a few measurements, and these are going to help you whenever you're looking at accessories for your new hitch. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper, it's going to be right about 6 inches. Now that measurement's going to help you when you're looking at folding accessories to make sure you have enough room to put your folding accessories in a stored upright position and that they don't make contact with the rear bumper. Now from the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening is right about 10.5 inches. Now that measurement, at that height I definitely recommend a bike rack or a cargo carrier with a raised shank because our INFINITI sits quite low to the ground, but that'll help us out a little bit with ground clearance. And now that we've seen what our hitch looks like and gone over some of the features, let's go and bring it to the shop and go through the installation process together. To begin our installation, we want to come to the back of our INFINITI. And if we move over to the passenger side and come underneath the rear bumper, we'll find our factory tie-down hook here. Now this is going to be held on by 4 bolts. We'll have 2 at the bottom of the frame, and then we're going to have 2 on the outside of the frame. And we're going to remove all of these, and you're going to want to grab a 16mm socket. Maybe a little bit easier if you get yourself a long extension and possibly a swivel so you can get a little bit more room to get the tool down here and have the socket up top. Now for the bolts on the side, you may be able to get a power tool in there, but it's pretty slim space in there, so I'm just going to be using a hand ratchet to take those bolts out. Once you have that last bolt out, we'll take the tie-down hook and we're going to set it aside. You can reinstall this at the end or you can leave it off, so you want to make sure you hold on to the hardware and the tie-down itself. Now we need a little bit more working room so we can get our hitch in place, so we're going to go ahead and lower the exhaust down. Now I always recommend to have some kind of support strap or a stand to help support the exhaust so it doesn't cause any damage when you start lowering it. So I'm just going to find a solid point on the vehicle. I'm going to tighten up the strap and we'll move right to the muffler, and if we look up we're going to find a hanger that's bolted to the frame, and you can see that rubber isolator that's attaching it to the muffler itself. So instead of trying to pry these off, we're just going to unbolt it from the bottom of the frame here. So we're going to grab a 13mm socket and we'll pull these 2 bolts out. Now again, using a long extension will definitely help out getting the reach you need. With these 2 removed, we want to make sure we hold on to the hardware. We'll move over to the other side. We're going to have this same bracket on the other side of the frame. Now there's 3 bolts, so you want to make sure you pull that 3rd one out as well. And then with all 3 of them removed, we're going to hold on to the hardware and we'll move over to the other side and pull those out as well. So now I can loosen up the strap a little bit. But as you can see, the exhaust really didn't come down that far from just removing the 2 rear hangers. So if we move forward on our exhaust, we'll find 2 more hangers just forward of the rear axle. We'll have one on one side and one on the other side. But again, you want to make sure you have that support strap up before we disconnect these so it doesn't come down too far. Now, the easiest way to loosen these up or to remove them is to take some spray lubricant. You just want to spray down the hanger and the rubber isolator there. And just make it a lot easier for that rubber isolator to slide off. I'm just going to take a pry bar. I'm going to pry against something and try to slide that rubber isolator to where it comes off that metal hanger. And it'll allow the exhaust to kind of droop down and give us a little bit more room. And we'll do the same thing for the other pipe, spraying it down and sliding that hanger off. With the exhaust loose now, I'm going to slowly lower that strap so we get a little bit more working room, a little bit of room for us to walk underneath. There should be plenty of room, and if we need a little bit more, we can always just gently pull down so we can get everything in place. So now that we have the exhaust out of the way, we can go over the attachment points for our hitch. Now we're on the driver's side frame rail here, but they're going to be in the same location on the passenger side. On the inside rail, or the inside ledge of the frame rail here, we're going to have two holes at the very back, directly above our muffler. Those are going to be our two attachment points, but we have to get some hardware in place. Now the holes in the bottom are a little bit small to get the hardware in, so we're going to be enlarging this hole right here. It's going to be the second one from the rear. You kind of see it has a little lip on it. The easiest way to enlarge this hole is you can use a step bit or you can use a file, but you just want to periodically take a piece of hardware and see if it'll fit through, because we only want to enlarge it big enough to where we can get our bolt and carriage block through. So again, I'm going to use a step bit, and I'm just going to drill out until I can get all my hardware through that hole. But now that we drilled our hole out, we can take our hardware and we can test it to make sure that it fits into the access hole. But with this one drilled out, all of our hardware fits. We're going to move over to the other side of the frame and enlarge the access hole over there. Now, it's never a good idea to leave exposed metal on your vehicle. So I'm going to come back, a little bit of spray paint. I'm going to cover up all the areas that have exposed metal on them where we were drilling. Hopefully this will prevent any kind of rust or corrosion from building up. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the other side and spray that side as well. At this point, we can grab one of our pull wires. This is what we're going to use to get our hardware in place. So I'm just going to go through one of the attachment point holes with the coiled end, and then we want to feed the wire down to where it's going to come out the access hole. Now, you do want to be careful because there may be some sharp edges because we did just get drilling that. But you also want to make sure that the tail end and the coiled end are both outside of the frame. We'll grab our square hole spacer block, slide it over the coiled end, and then we'll take carriage bolt and thread it onto the end of the wire. Then we'll push each piece into the frame by one at a time. Then we can pull the bolt through to where it's going to come out the hole, and we can get access to everything. Now the other one towards the rear bumper is going to be exactly the same. So just take our coiled wire, feed it in, and get it to come out the access hole. It'll be a little tricky to get that wire to come out, but just a little bit of patience. Should pop right out and get the rest of our hardware in place. Now that we have both bolts coming through the frame, you want to make sure you leave the pull wires attached in case they do get pushed in. And just so it's easier to get the hitch in place, I like to have the bolts just on the inside of the frame rail. That way, once we do lift the hitch up, you can just pull on that pull wire and it'll go right through. We'll move to the other side of the frame and put the hardware in the same locations over there. At this point we can lift our hitch up. I suggest getting an extra set of hands. The hitch isn't really heavy, but it's a little awkward trying to lift it up and get all the pull wires in the correct spot. We want to take our pull wires and coming from the outside of the hitch, we want to feed them towards the center. And that'll help guide the hitch up. And we can get the hardware to come through. They take a little bit of wiggling to get the hardware to come through, but you want to get the bolts to come through the side, that way the hitch will kind of hold itself up there, and then we can work on getting the hardware in place. Now that I have one bolt through at least, I'm going to remove the pull wire, and I'm going to secure it using a flange nut. Now you want to get at least one on each side. Just be mindful that depending on which one you have, the hitch may want to rotate. So just watch what you're doing, but each one of the holes is going to get one of those flange nuts once you get all the bolts through. Once you have all your flange nuts in place, you want to come back with an 11/16 socket and snug them all up. You want to make sure you come back with a torque wrench. We're going to torque all of our hardware down to the specified amount in the instructions. We'll make sure to repeat that for all of our remaining hardware. And with the hitch torqued down, we can raise our exhaust back up, tighten up the strap to help us hold it in place. And I like to spray a little more lubricant on there, on the hangers and isolators. Just makes it a little bit easier to slide those rubber isolators back onto the metal post. Keep you a little stiff, but using that lubricant will definitely help out. And then we can start bolting the rear ones back in place. I like to get all the bolts started by hand first. So a couple threads in there, make sure they're not going to cross thread. I'll come back and tighten them all up once they're all in place. Then we can finally remove the support strap from earlier, and that'll finish up your installation and your look at the CURT Class 1 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2018 INFINITI Q50.